made something and thought, this sounds wrong, but I don't exactly know why? This video is going to fix that. I'm going to show you the one thing that separates the songs that sound good from the ones that don't, and you don't need any experience to do it. Let's jump in. If you want a full step-by-step program for beginners that shows how you can apply this in more detail, check out the link in the description. Most beginners think that sounding good has to do with having good gear, having the most expensive gear, and then having the most knowledge on music or about really any subject within the music making realm. Both of these are not true. The secret is understanding how to be intentional in your song to make it cohesive and engaging at the same time. So let's go ahead and talk about how you can do this now. Now, notice when you listen to your favorite songs, how your favorite artists can keep you engaged for a solid 3 to 5 minutes, and you can just keep repeating that same song over and over again. Now, how exactly do they do that? I've analyzed a bunch of these songs and I have narrowed it down into one framework I call sound language. Now, these are made up of the following elements: repetition, variation, silence, ear candy, and structure. Now, let's go ahead and break each of these down one by one. So first off, let's talk about repetition. Repetition is repeating certain sections of a song. I have an example here. Now, what you can do for your song in order to make sure that there is some kind of repetition is either within your melody. You can make it more catchy by adding repeating sections. You can repeat one part of your song twice, like I've done here. Doing this makes it catchy and easily recognizable. And plus, using the same instruments within those sections helps with that as well. Now, the next part of sound language is variation. Now, it sounds counterintuitive to the repetition, but let me break it down. So, adding little differences here and there, even within the parts that are similar, help the listener not get bored. So a lot of times these variations are very subtle. So sometimes you might hear it within the drums here. Let's start at this section and then compare it to this section over here. Notice how in the second section here, I'll zoom in here for you a little bit too. Notice that my drums, there are more hi-hats. There are more hi-hats here. So if I were to open up the piano roll really quick, if I were to open the channel rack really quick, you'll notice that I have more instances of this hi-hat playing. So if I solo it, that's in the first part, second part here. And then if we unsolo it, little things like that. You'll notice that too when you start listening to your favorite songs. Maybe they're pop or electronic dance type music, that if they're repeating that main section, also known as the chorus, over again, you might hear little variations like that, like they add more hi-hats, or they might even change up a couple of the other drums as well. Adding those additional elements for that variation can help to also make the song more intense in certain areas. So you're making that little roller coaster. You make a little roller coaster as well. And I'll put something on the screen to show the drawing I made for my students here. So yes, adding that variation helps a ton with keeping your audience engaged. So for you, your action step is, like, if you have some repeating parts, that's cool. You've got the repetition down. Maybe try changing the the note in here as well, like one note. And even within just the Mary Had a Little Lamb section, you notice that this part of the melody, this part of the melody is basically the exact same as this part of the melody, but just different notes going down at the end. So that adds that little variation, but still keeps the identity of the melody the same, so we can easily recognize it. So here is that example here for you guys. That's a melody 1. And that's melody 2. Just that difference, having that variation while having that repetition makes that much of a difference. Now, the next section here is the power of silence. That is our next element of my sound language framework here. So one thing that the pros are not afraid to do in my analysis of this is using silence to their advantage. Now, a lot of beginners want to start with adding as many elements as possible to make the song as big as possible, but that is the wrong way to go about this. Even if it's not total quiet, the pros know how to manipulate maybe 1 to 2 sounds to get the desired result. Even if it's not total quiet, you'll hear that there are less instruments in one section than another section, and that makes things more chill. So here's what I mean. I'm going to create a little example for you here in our fun song. Now, in order to do this, what I'm going to do is actually just duplicate this. So I'm going to Control left click and then Shift left click and drag it over here so that we have another duplicate right here. Now, there are a few ways we can create silence. The first one, we can just go through and right click and just get rid of one line. Just get rid of one line and see how it sounds. Notice how much of a difference that makes? By taking out the kick, and even just that one line, it makes it just that much chiller. It brings the vibe down. Like, we're ready, we're calmed down, and it gives it space for us to move up later. Now, compare it to this one. We could also just remove groups of elements all at once. So we can remove all of our drums here and just hear how it sounds. And we can bring it back up. By bringing those elements back in after that silence, we just created a little bit of a roller coaster here. So that is huge. If you are struggling with creating that character in your song, try removing elements. Really, it makes a difference. And you could even try removing the basses too. And then bring it all back in. So yes, that's one of my favorite sections of the sound language framework. The more you remove, the more that you can add back in and add even more groove. And that adds more hype to your listeners. And that's how a lot of pro songs do it. So Go ahead and your next task, remove some instruments. It's gonna be difficult at first, but remember you can always add them back in if you hate it. Now, the next section, the next part that we're gonna move into is something called ear candy. So what exactly is ear candy? You know how if you've listened to ASMR at all and you hear just the little crackles, or I don't know, or maybe the people with the long nails, the ladies with the long nails that are like cracking the soap, it depending on your personal preference, there are certain sounds that just make you feel comfortable. They are just, it's like eating a delicious plate of pasta. It is so good. It's like food to your ears. Almost, it's like, in our case, sweets to our ears or candy to our ears. We're going to add that into this song, and I'm going to show you how. Now, we can do this with just the stock samples. So what that means is we can use whatever is included within your version of FL Studio to create what we need. So you do not need to go out and buy all these sample packs or anything like that. That is not needed at all. This is beginner friendly, truly. So whatever you have, you can use. Now, if we go to our browser section over here, let's go to our all, and then I'm gonna minimize this so you guys can see what's kind of happening. I like to use the packs, so and I like the drums mode audio. Now, in order to add our ear candy, let's go first to our percussion. This is a great way to add it. Now, you'll hear all of these weird sounding thingamabobs, weird sounding sounds. And at first, when I was beginning, I was like, what do you even use these for? And then after coming across after learning about and figuring out this ear candy situation, then it just changed everything. So go ahead and pick a sound that you like. Ooh, this sounds fun. And then left click and drag it into your song somewhere. It doesn't matter where at this point. We just want to see how it sounds in relation to everything else. Now, the only problem with this is that it's different from the rest of the song, and we'll talk about this in a moment. It does not sound like it's in the same like tune, or in our case is the same scale. Or the same scale, the same key. The frame of reference, the tune of this does not fit within that, so it's causing it to sound wrong, like it doesn't belong, and all of that. So what we could do, we could adjust the pitch of this in order to find it, but instead of that, I'm gonna find another ear candy option. So I'm gonna right click and delete it, and then I'm gonna find one that doesn't necessarily have that much of a tune to it. This power click too, let's add this one and see how this sounds. Okay, I like that. That sounds a lot better. And then I'm just gonna play around and just find a spot where it sounds good. Now for the ear candy, we want it to be expected, but also unexpected at the same time. So here's what I mean. We don't necessarily want all of our ear candy elements to end up on the thick grid lines here. Let's see, I want to make sure you guys can see that. On the thick grid lines here. Sometimes we want them on the non-thick grid lines as well, because that is what adds the additional character and the additional life. So here's what I mean. So if we have it just right on the thick grid lines, it can sound like this, and I'll add a second one for comparison here. It sounds great, but let's go ahead and just try moving it to another, let's just try moving it over, like, to the next thickest bar. Okay, now with this, notice how it's since we've moved it to a different line, it's not necessarily lining up as much with the main beats. And that's the whole goal of ear candy. It's to add little bits of sparkle within those beats here. And then what I'm gonna do as well, I'm gonna add this to my, I'm actually gonna turn this down. Let's see here. And notice how it's also kind of lining up with the melody as well, like one of the notes when it hits in our main sound, in our main tune. So that also adds extra oomph to it. Now we can go ahead and add this throughout, but the fun thing with ear candy is that you just add a bunch of it. You add a bunch of it. So let's find another sound that's a little bit different. Let's try this tap. This tap looks fun. And then if you ever want to get even more fine-tuned, you can always go and add, like, just go Alt and then just scooch it over here. And then I'm gonna have to hurry up. Okay, I don't necessarily love this, but do you hear that when that comes in? It's so subtle. The way we've done it, it's so subtle that it makes that much of a difference. Now I'm going to add a little SFX or sound effects. Like this anvil sounds good. It's going to sound, this is a great way to like separate different sections and add that extra bit of hype. Now I'm going to turn this down a bit. And then what we can do, we can just duplicate this throughout the whole main section here. Is focus, the last and final element that we will discuss regarding sound language is going to be structure. So notice how all of these notes, if we open the piano roll, they are all in the same key. Like if you take a look and you notice the difference between the light gray and the dark gray, all of my notes line up on the light gray. So what this means in FL Studio is that everything is set to the proper key. So the key is, again, the frame of reference within music, and that is the perspective that your viewers and yourself are going to be listening for to make sure everything is cohesive. If we even changed and moved this, let's say, up just one note, you'll notice a difference. See what I mean? So that's where structure comes in. Even with this being such a creative field, creativity without cohesion creates chaos. And we do not want that kind of chaos. That kind of chaos is what causes our listeners to click off. What we want to do in order to make sure that we are in the proper frame of reference or proper key, we can go to our little arrow here, go to View, go to Note Grid Highlights, make sure that has a check mark next to it, and then go to Scale Highlighting. And then pick the frame of reference that you want to work with. Now, for beginners, I recommend just starting with C major or A minor, or if you know a little bit more and are a little more, have a little bit more knowledge, maybe G major or E minor. I use G major in this song. There's a lot of these here, so I'm going to just go with our regular, the top major. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back here, go to our View, Scale Highlighting, and then this should open up, G. And then notice, boom, there it is. And then just make sure your notes line up with the lighter colored gray here, and then you should be able to keep everything within that structure. Before we get to the final result, I want to tell you guys like what the ear is actually listening for. So the ear, what we want to hear things that sound good together, that sound right, but also have a little bit of extra pizzazz in it, extra sparkle. And adding this ear candy and this variation and this silence helps to add that. Even if it's subtle, it makes that much of a difference. While that structure keeps everything cohesive, so it does not sound chaotic. These are like the 5 things that will skyrocket your progress in your songs really fast. If you want more in-depth lessons like this, go ahead and click the link below to check out my beginner full step-by-step program that will take you from zero music experience to creating your first song from the ideas in your head. All right, I will see you in the next video. Let's take a look at the final result.